Hey everybody, D here, Dimensions in Time. One of the things that I wanted to show you, and there are a lot of changes that I've got to go over in this episode, is the processing, the crafting processor that I have. I used to have one big processor that handled everything, and I've separated it out to three here so that it'll handle more processes and more quickly do processing. Now I've also rearranged my molecular assemblers over here. I've put power coming in all the way from the other room on all the tops of them, and the interfaces on the sides are all filled with patterns that will make it easier to make recipes. And I've rearranged it a little bit over here. The charger's now here with a import bus so that I can actually charge up some crystals. And as you can see, I'm using all 8 channels of the cable, and that is my main goal, is to try to rearrange a lot of this stuff so that it's using cables and spacing more efficiently. I'm using 32 of the dense cable channels, so that's full, and I want to run the cables differently and use every channel that I possibly can. Down where I was going to build my mob killing farm, I decided to build a nuclear reactor, like you can see here. I'm going to put it down here because it's farther away from the machines. This is a fluid reactor, which means that it's got 5 of these reactor chambers surrounding it, as you can see the chamber there. And this is fed IC2 coolant. You feed the coolant in through, as you can see in the little hole there, there are input and output for fluid. You can see them better on the outside here. And fluid is filled in, coolant is sent in through those and goes through the system. And we're going to start making some coolant over here using some water with a little system that I'm going to build. And that's fed into that reactor to cool it down and keep it running. So I made a little system down here that will take in regular water into a steam generator, powered by an electric heat generator, and the electricity is being generated by a couple geothermal generators down here, being fed by lava. We're running out of lava down in the nether, so I've got to switch to nuclear power. So I made myself an MFE so that I can feed these machines 512 EU per tick. And what's happening is the water's being fed from this tank using an ender fluid conduit into the steam generator. It's being made into steam. Now I feed in 1 micro bucket per tick. I have this pressure value in the steam generator set to 250 bar. I don't know if these are the optimal settings or not, but they've always worked for me. If you know of a better setting, please put it in the comments for people to see. But what's happening is the heat generator over here is taking that electricity, turning it into heat, and then passing the heat into here. And this is like a little metal rod that runs through the machine. And this pretty much is how things work in the real world, I believe. This rod gets heated up, the water passes over it, turns into steam, and is then being fed up into this condenser, which is collecting that steam. Once it gets to a certain point, it will actually turn it into distilled water. That distilled water is being fed into this canning machine, fluid solid canning machine, with a little bit of lapis lazuli dust in here. And that actually, if you put it on fluid enrich, will turn this distilled water into coolant. So there you have it. Anyway, let's get back to this. What happens is when you feed regular water into this steam generator, you can see that it calcifies. And what calcification means is that on this bar that's heated up, when the water turns into steam, and again, this is actually what happens in real life, I believe, the minerals and little deposits of metals and things that are in the water get stuck to this rod because it turns into steam, and the minerals don't melt. It's not that hot. So this gets calcified, they call it. And over time, as this gets covered, it won't conduct the heat as well as just the bare metal sitting out there touching the water. So as this calcifies, it will become less and less efficient. So there'll be less steam coming out of it. And once it actually reaches a certain percentage, I forget what they said, 90 maybe, 90% calcification, it will just disappear. It'll explode, disappear from the world, and stop working, and then the whole system will stop working. So we've got to watch out for that. Now the way to get around that is if you want to make steam for something, and I think later on I'll be taking the hot fluid that comes out of here and creating some kind of steam with it. I'll be taking heat from the reactor, I believe, and using it to create steam with one of these steam generators and feeding that steam into a block to make RF, because I'm not sure that you can go from the Industrial Craft EU straight to RF. There may be a converter block out there I'll see about, but I'm not sure. So I may have to have steam generators working for thermal expansion to make energy for RF, but I'm not sure. We're going to get to that later. I'm going to experiment with some things. But right now, if you feed the distilled water that it's creating from this block back into one of these steam generators, distilled water does not calcify. Distilled water is basically water without the minerals and metals in the water. So ideally what you want to do is create a system where you have distilled water going into the steam generator to create steam. And then you can make it a closed system so that steam is generated to create energy in a steam generator possibly, and it keeps getting fed back in here, and it won't calcify, and the machine will run forever. So that's basically where we are now. So as you can see, I've got 2 buckets in here now. I'm going to, there it is right there. I'm going to use an ender conduit, and I'm going to set this to extract and always extract. And then I'm going to set this to insert. I don't have to, but I like to make sure that the arrows point the way that I want them to. Now I'm starting to store the IC2 coolant in this tank. Once I get enough, what I'll end up doing is I'm going to start feeding it into this drum. The drum will hold 256,000 micro buckets. And I probably should just feed it right into the drum now, but I think it looks cooler. You're able to see exactly what it is that you're making right here with this little system. So that is the first step in getting my base ready for nuclear power, making some IC2 coolant. I hope this helped you out, and we'll be back soon. So I'm back looking at this steam generator, and I'm trying to get it to be a little bit more efficient, make a little bit more steam. So I've got 10 megabuckets per tick now instead of 1 going in, and I want to raise this pressure value and see what happens. As you can see, that once you raise the pressure, the temperature starts to go up. I want to get as high as I possibly can and see if it makes a difference with making steam. It looks like it actually makes it slower, but we'll see. Maybe it just needs to top out here because it's getting hotter and hotter. It's making steam. Now this is starting to go again. Let's see how fast it goes. Yeah, that is faster. That's definitely faster. So my advice is play around with the amount of water that you put into it. As you can see, the heat units should stay about the same because of this. I mean, this machine is basically taking as much power as it possibly can from this system back here. And I can see I have 0 buffer. All these machines up here have powered buffer, but it does look like it's making steam a lot faster now. So let's see where my temperature is. I really don't want this to explode on me. I'm not exactly sure, but it looks like it's evened out now at 436. Let's raise this up to 5 and see what we get. 275. Now it's not making steam. because its temperature's rising. You can see output is water. There we go. Now it's getting back to steam. When you make adjustments to it, it looks like it fluctuates and just stops making steam. Now we're making some steam. Now what'll probably happen is this calcification is going to raise a little bit higher too. Because we're making more steam more quickly, it looks like calcification is going to be... But it's not going up too bad. It looks like it's slow enough where I'm going to get some pretty good output from this. Definitely going a little faster there. Every time this gets one bucket in it, I believe it should pull it out here. And so far we have 1,500 micro buckets. That's a bucket and a half of coolant. It's going to take it a long time, it looks like, to make this. But got nothing but time as I research my nuclear reactor here. So looks like we're doing pretty well. So I'm going to raise this. Well, that might be too much. Let's go 5 at a time. So there's 280. We're outputting water. Temperature's rising. We're getting really close to the top now. I'm getting scared. Okay, it's making steam. 449. Let's see. It looks to be about the same speed. I'm not sure I'm making any difference here. All I'm doing is scaring myself. I'd really love for this thing to just fly. I don't know if it'll actually do that or if it ever gets to that point. Receive heat per tick. I really should look up and see. I mean, it says 100 heat units max. I wonder if there's a block that will actually make more heat units. Oh, I bet you the RTG. I bet you that nuclear version. What is that called? Radioisotope heat generator. I wonder what that actually produces. It looks like you need a reactor chamber, a heat conductor, and some iron casings. Now, what does RTG fuel? What is that made of? The pellets. So you have to get plutonium and a dense iron plate, which is not that bad. Plutonium actually is going to be the hardest part, just because you need to build a thermal centrifuge in order to be able to process that plutonium. So what do you use? Looks like fuel rods. Now how do you make a fuel rod? That it doesn't. Oh, okay. Well, that doesn't really say. Interesting. So you take uranium and plutonium and mix it together, or your yellorium ingots and plutonium, and it looks like mixing them together will give you nuclear fuel. I'm getting into some dangerous territory here because I am not sure. I've got hazmat stuff on, except for the chest protector, because I wanted my energy pack while I was building this stuff together. But it looks like it's actually losing durability as I go. Maybe I'm not really being attacked by anything, so I'm not exactly sure why that's going down. I haven't made anything that's actually nuclear except for these reactor pressure vessels and the things inside itself. There's really no nuclear component that I've made yet. So I'm at a loss. I'm really in uncharted territory here as far as what to do. And I'm trying to look up things online as little as possible so that I can try to learn how to do these things myself. But I think at this point, with the documentation for IC2 being so sparse, that I may have to actually watch someone else and see how they make things. So maybe it's time to go research and figure this stuff out. And with that, it seems like this is a good spot to end this episode. I appreciate you viewing. And if you like this video, please hammer that like button down below. And also subscribe if you want to see when other videos are coming out. I'm going to start shortening up these Let's Play videos so I can get them out more quickly. And I appreciate everyone's support out there. Ask your questions below. I'll try to answer everyone. And thanks for watching.